So I'm going to talk a little bit about pandemic. And I think I mentioned this earlier. I think I said it in the big room. Yeah. But we did a lot of remote repair, and then we're kind of going back to what we used to do halftime next year. So I'm really excited about that. And we are barcoding stuff that needs more time, more tools, more expertise, or parts, all of those things. And that's really boosted our repair rate. So our repair rates used to be in about the 85%, and now they're up in the 95%, usually regularly. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. I'm going to keep rambling unless someone else would jump in. And do you all have any questions about running repair events or comments or things you learned, things you want to share?
I'm
Hey,
really
Karen, what do
curious.
you mean by barcoding? Yeah, oh, there you go. Wayne had the same
Bingo.
question.
There we go. So when the pandemic hit, we basically went from in-person events to this repair goes remote concept. And so we use a barcoding system for that. So I taught myself how to create barcodes, and which is actually really cool because you can make them say whatever you want them to say. And then we use them to associate an item with a client. And then that's how we track the item through the process. And I actually have I'll see if I can find it and show it to you, but on our, I think it's on our website. We have a graphic that shows the whole repair goes remote process. So there's kind of like 4 different distinct sections of that and like how it kind of all works together. And the barcode is integral to that in terms of, kind of keeping track of everybody's stuff. Because right now we're doing, well, last month we did 111 items. We repaired, 111 items.
So are
And I
you
think
fixing this barcode to the item somehow?
Yeah. Yeah, we
Okay,
just tape it.
how are you fixing it? Maybe you have a photo of that.
Scotch tape.
Okay. Do you have a photo to
It's
show
just
us?
it's very, very simple. I don't have anything on me, but I can certainly, I'll send it out to everyone. I think I shared it in the last summit to you, actually. So it's just printed out. And we started realizing that you wanted to include some information in the barcode itself. So the barcode has 4 digits that are completely random and arbitrary, but the first 3 digits and the color indicate which library branch. So we're partnering now with 4 library branches to return stuff to people. So the first letter indicates, second and third letters indicate which library branch it goes back to, and that's the color as well. It kind of makes things easier when we're trying to like figure things out in the workshop. And then the first one indicates the category. So like A for appliance, E for electronics, that type of thing. What were the logistics about storage and return on the remote repairs? Yeah, so our repair goes remote program, and by the way, if there's other questions, let's please get to them. I'm happy to answer this later, but since this is what we're talking about now. So we started with like a drive-through sharpening event. It was sharpening only, and it was drive-through. And so we didn't have to barcode any of that stuff, but that kind of gave us the idea that this might work. And then it started with literally me and a card table and a laptop and a barcode scanner sitting underneath the tree out here outside my office, because it had to be outdoors, of course. And this was like in August of 2020. And so people would bring us stuff, and then we had like 2 events per month here at work. And that we did that for a while. And then one of the library branches approached us and said, hey, maybe we could be a drop-off spot for you guys. And then that quickly changed into 4 different branches. So they're kind of equally spaced throughout the county. And one of the nice things about that was it boosted the equitability, because where I work is not on any kind of public transport line. So you really have to have a vehicle to get here. And like I said, it was only open 2 times a month. So we were open 2 times a month for 2-hour slots. And you had to like drop your stuff off and pick up your fixed stuff in that 2-hour slot. And if you didn't, you have to wait till the next one. Whereas now with the library branches, they are holding the stuff and then you can go pick it up just like you would be picking up like an on-hold book or a video or whatever else. So you just show up and you say, hey, I got an email saying that my vacuum's done. I'm here to pick it up. And so that is on public transport lines, and you can pick up anytime the library is open. And then storage is interesting. I commandeered the basement of the building that I'm in right now. It is far, far from perfect. If you were looking for a space, I would highly recommend looking for something that you can drive right up to. We are having to drag everything up and down a flight of steps, and a typical load for me, which happens 4 times a month, is 9 trips back and forth up and down steps. And then if you think that that has to happen 3 more times, right? So fixers have to come and take the stuff to their vehicles, they come and bring it back, and then we load it one last time to go back to the branches. So it's far from ideal, but it is totally working. And our program actually has boosted our numbers and then also repair rates, as I mentioned in the beginning. That's a great question, Anita. So for the very first event, how do you market? And then I'll get to Megan's question after that. Does anybody else want to take that question? For the first event, how do you market? I wasn't here when we first started, so. Bruce, were you there when you first started?
No.
And how did you market?
I will say, because I'm fairly new at organizing our repair events, and I talked a lot with Tara about this about a year ago. And I had that same question. I was like, I don't even know how, to a community that doesn't have like established repair programs, like how do you explain what a repair event is? And so I don't know that I really have the answer, but I know like our initial signs and like flyers and that kind of thing just had like really basic things of like, what do you do with your favorite sweater that has a hole in it, or your vacuum that just stopped working? Like I just named the top things that are usually always like your lamp, vacuum, and sweater. And then I just said, and then it's like, and you bring it here. And then I have like a really small blurb of like these events, like a really 2-sentence thing about what these events are, is like, and so that was my initial like thing of like trying to explain it. And then I always just pushed to go to the website where I had like extra information about what an event is. I don't know if that's really what your question was, but I had that huge question when I first started, and it's an interesting thing. And as it evolves, you kind of start to get more and more people who understand it and more questions, and it kind of works out.
Perfect. Heather, I saw you had your hands up, and then Stephen, did you have an answer to that question or an additional question?
Well, I didn't have an answer to the question, but I would just add in that I think we have a comment, a statement, something like connecting fixers that like to fix stuff with people with broken stuff. So it gives them the idea that that's what it's about. But I did have a question or an idea. We participated online with Peter in the Fix It Clinic a couple times, and it was a very collaborative environment with the fixers. And we I got some pictures and thinking 4 heads are better than 1. So even at our repair fairs, we've had fixers collaborating together to fix things. So I'm just wondering if other groups are connecting individual fixers with individual people with broken stuff, or if they're also collaborating a group of fixers to one item. The other idea that I have, and I saw something in the other session about the idea of apprentice fixers. So fixers that can guide apprentice fixers through the troubleshooting process of fixing things for those people who don't want to pick up a screwdriver themselves. And what was, I'll get that other one. I had one more, but if there's feedback in the group of different ways other than the one-on-one to bring a little more collaboration into individual fix items.
Thanks, Stephen. Dawn, I know you also, I think you started your program, didn't you? So you probably have some.
Yeah, we started about 5 years ago, and boosted posts on Facebook are very useful. Now, I realize you may not like Facebook or it may be controversial, but sometimes you have to go where your customers are, where your attendees are, and they're on Facebook. And so while you don't have any followers yet, you can set up a page for the Repair Cafe or whatever it is, and then put out some posts and then pay to promote those so they appear in people's feeds. You can set a geographic target. So you might set, say, a 5-mile radius. You can set some demographic targets. So you might want people who are 18 and over, or you might want people who are, I don't remember exactly all the demographics, but maybe homeowners or you can pick your criteria. If you notice you're getting more of one gender than another, you can target by gender. So there's a few different things you can do to kind of shape the targeting. But for a modest spend of $40 to $60, you can get a few hundred impressions. You begin to get likes, and then you can target friends of the people who like your page and so on. So it kind of grows from there. But that's a useful way to start for a few dollars.
Perfect. Bruce, I think you put your answer in the chat. So is it okay if I skip you?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. And then Peter, did you had an answer too, I think.
Sorry, guys. I forgot what. At an ideal Fix-It clinic, like I said earlier, the role of participant and Fix-It coach blurs. And so I advise my Fix-It coaches to act like they're doctors on grand rounds in a hospital. We do not assign an individual item to a fixer. We basically, that whole model that we have for our in-person events is the idea that, like I said, it's a party of Fix-It coaches that the general public is invited to try and crash. And with that, what that means is that since the tool's in the middle of the room, I mean, people show up and they have to get the attentions of the fixers to get the help that they need to make it happen. The other thing I was going to paste in the chat window is I'll show you a flyer that we created for a high school that wants to start repairing in their high school. And I'll put that link in here now so that you can sort of see. We basically try to get the high school put up the flyers. But the idea, another thing Fix-It Clinic has done since the pandemic is we've reached out beyond repairing people's individually owned items to also include our shared public property and community assets. So I'm encouraging any municipality or county agency, if like the coffee maker and the staff break room breaks, that is something we would fix at a Fix-It clinic without them having to be present and materially participating. Ideally, we want them to come. What I'm trying to do now is support the idea that for any organization that wants to encourage either their employees or their management to think about repairing, to think repair first, that Fix-It clinic can be part of that. So for example, we're fixing an electric wheelchair lift for Temple in San Leandro, California right now. I've got a couple of Fix-It coaches out there doing that on site, and if they need help, they can come to the Global Fixers Discord server to get support on that.
Perfect. Great. Heather, I know you've had your hand up a while.
Well, I didn't, but I am very happy to talk. I mean, I was kind of waiting my turn.
Not you, Heather.
Oh, okay, good. Because you say Heather, but wait, what Heather? We talking
Sorry, Heather Robinson.
Oh, thank God. Okay, I did not think I had.
Heather, Heather Trim, you always have amazing things to share, but shush for now.
Yes, that was my plan.
Yeah, I had it up and then I took it down, then I put it back up again. I have a couple of suggestions. I think first for the marketing, because I started mine on weekends and evenings as a personal project, I kind of feel the pain of people who do that, not having like the infrastructure or the resources when you're kind of trying to start some grassrootsy. So a couple of things that, aside from a lot of the great suggestions about the social media, electronic, web-based kind of promotion, is I got in touch with kind of the local farmers markets and asked if I could just set up a table, like the city where we had our first event. I asked the city staff if I could, the solid waste staff there, if I could just say, hey, can we use your spot to set up a table? And I brought some broken appliances that I had that I borrowed, piled them up, put up a sign, and the biggest hurdle was, that first step was to find fixer volunteers. And so that just the randomness of having someone with a table with a bunch of broken items and a sign that says, have you ever fixed anything like this? Caught a lot of attention. And that's kind of how we got our first wave of volunteers. And that was my biggest concern, because I figured once we kind of spread the word that there's free repair happening at the library, which is where, my other suggestion is to connect with your host location. So we have the libraries, the Restore, and a community center, which were our first few events. But yeah, it was my first idea was like, the first hurdle is getting the volunteers. So you have people who can fix things when people bring all of their items there. But yeah, it did take a little bit of time. The first couple events, once we had fixers, getting folks to understand what a repair event was, because it was fairly early days. It's like 7 years ago. So there weren't a lot of videos online that I could show people, or a lot of photos, except for, like out of the Netherlands, for the promotion. So trying to come up with the language of what exactly it is, the connecting people who know how to fix things with people who have broken things was great, to use that. And so yeah, it took about 2 rounds, and then our third round with the library was the exact right balance. It was like kind of like this is the event we were kind of looking for. And kind of before all that, just wanted to kind of if you haven't done this yet, finding a group of people that you can kind of chat about how to coordinate what a repair event looks like, so you have your little team. That was really helpful too, just to like work out all the details, what kind of, the type of marketing and resources in your community, who can do what, who's going to volunteer, and who's just there to give, ideas and opinions, etc. So that's my thought on that. As far as the logistics of having, I don't mean to dominate here, but the logistics of having the repair folks working on things, I really like the idea of the coaching. I'm trying to figure out how to work that in. But what I found works with our particular group is when people sign in their items, putting it on a whole table and allowing the fixers who are done with their item to come up and choose which item they feel most comfortable with. And, we kind of encourage the ones that were here earlier or pre-registered, etc. But then they take them back to their area, and we have it set up so that people who have similar skills are in the same area. So we find that collaboration starts to work naturally after fixers get kind of comfortable with each other and become friends. I don't know if that helps, but
Yeah,
those are my 2 cents.
Okay, Susie?
Yeah, hi. So I'm a coordinator for a lot of cafes. I'm in the Hudson Valley area. I took over for John Wackman, if anyone's familiar with the Hudson Valley Repair Cafe Network. And so I'm pretty new, but I was a jewelry fixer with my local cafe for many, many years before that. And I've done just a farmer's market and all these kinds of advertising. So I'm going to agree. Facebook is really helpful. And the free tools that you can use on Facebook include making a page for your cafe and, having a linked Instagram account and posting. The more regularly you post, the more engagement that you get, those kinds of things. And also you can make an event for your Facebook page. And also you can just share a post on your page, and it's a little time intensive, but once you get it, you join groups as the page or as yourself, and then post, we have 40 different cafes, so they're all in different areas. So I tried to join a county group and those kinds of things. And someone did post this, but yeah, I've heard like hooking up with the different resource recovery and recycling and all those kinds of places and have them share it. And it's we cover so many counties, it's a little confusing for me, but I just, hooking up with the government agencies that cover environmental stuff, and they'll put it out in their newsletters. Someone said next door. I don't know how effective this is, but sometimes I'll make an Eventbrite because those come through as free events to people in different areas. So those are the kinds of just outside the box thinking. And then also, signs, just posting signs up. Libraries are good at getting the word out, even if they're not the host. And just radio stations and any kind of press and PR you can get to. But it gets a little exhausting, and it's hard to know what impact you're really having. But
yeah, I said this in the chat, Susie, you just mentioned it, but I by far have had the best success with a press release, a well-written press release. And especially we pay for a service, my nonprofit pays for a service that like puts it out to everybody. So if you don't have this service, I don't actually know how you do that. Maybe someone does and can say it. But that is, yeah, that's like the best thing I can do, to the point of it's sometimes a little too much success. And I have to kind of like, I haven't done a lot of press releases the last 2 years because I was concerned about capacity and, having lots of people in the same room kind of thing. So, and then Xenia, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, chime in on marketing efforts, talking about too much success. So what we did for our last Fix It Fair, we did post flyers, old school flyers on poles around the area where the Fix It Fair was located, hosted. And someone took a screenshot or like a photo and posted it on Reddit. I don't know we did actually survey people and ask them where they came from. A lot of them came from Flyer, but a lot of them came from Reddit. I don't use it personally, but the way it works, community can vote for bringing this news up or that post up. And we had like hundreds and hundreds of votes up. So that kind of post was very popular, on Reddit. So those two, old school and very digital, worked together and gave us 150 people. Don, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just waiting to get called on. I wanted to comment on, how do you onboard new volunteers, or if you have junior volunteers? One of the things we don't do is do any vetting or kind of testing of our coaches. If somebody comes forward and says they know how to do electrical repair, I trust them and I say, okay, I'll give you some electrical repair. But what I do in their first session, their first workshop, is I partner them with an existing coach. So they'll spend the whole 4-hour day side by side with an experienced coach. So they kind of learn the conversational approach that we use. They learn what it means to kind of respect the item that the guest is bringing in. And so there's a bit of that kind of onboarding process. We don't really have any sort of training. We don't really kind of take a person who has no skills and wants to learn and kind of bring them along. But I think if somebody were like that and they showed up, we'd probably do that same thing. We'd partner them with an experienced person and then let them kind of learn step by step as we go. And then, take on small projects like lamp repair to start with, and then they can take on the more difficult things down the road. That's all.
Sorry, my number lock wasn't on. I'm trying to say 250 volunteers. It's late. It's been a long day. I'm a hot mess. There was another question too. I want to go back. Sorry, I'm gonna publicize a question that was asked to me directly. So it says, how do you deal with items dropped off that are clearly not fixable or require expensive parts? Without screening, we become burdened with items to be recycled, not an economic problem, or must go to the landfill, cost us money. So personally speaking, We have started, we've started recycling things, but there are certain things like if something has a coolant, like if it's like a mini fridge or something like that. And then there's certain things we just say no to off the top. So we don't do microwaves, gas engines, or we don't sharpen anything with multiple teeth. Oh, and we added holiday light strings as well to our no list. So there's certain things that we just don't say yes to in the first place. And then I really haven't run into it too much because I work with a local scrapper who will just come and like take everything off our hands. But I do think that you could have it be a part of the marketing and the liability form that basically says like, part of our liability form says that our fixers don't have to put their stuff back. So they don't have to like reassemble your thing if they've deemed it unfixable. And that does save us some time sometimes. And I think you could also add in like, hey, if we can't do anything with this, we're not going to like deal with the end of life of it for you. That's on you, the consumer. You're the one who brought it into your life. Now you need to like properly do that. The flip side of that is if you can help people do it properly, then you know it's being done properly. So that's my 2 cents for that. Heather, go for it. Heather, trim this time.
A couple of I guess big picture comments that maybe could, if we are kind of done with some of the logistics questions, because I don't want to take away from those. But this debate we were having a little bit earlier about whether we make it an event where we're repairing for people or we're teaching them how to repair. So when we first started doing repair events, we had a very intense debate about this. Like, what is our goal here? Our goal is actually to change the societal norm. That's our goal. But what I think is what we really want is a multitude of what we're doing. So I think we want both what Peter is promoting and what Tara is promoting, which is we want the ones where people can really help train people and get that norm changed. But we also, we really have that same concern that Tara mentioned, is that we also want to reach those people who would not repair it themselves. And that's why we decided to do the model where we're kind of doing both. Like people can either, they're being trained, but then they can get their item repaired. The intangibles of coming into a room, and this is why COVID has been so painful, coming into that room and feeling the throbbing excitement of people at a repair event, and that amazing feeling is unbelievable, right? And I think you can feel it both in the events Peter's talking about, because you can feel it online, but also in the room. It's unbelievable. But it would be interesting, if we can, to also sort of talk about how can we also, with our work in our events and things, try to get things to become mainstream so that actually people will default to repair rather than throwing it away or recycling it or buying new. I was in Home Depot not too long ago. Now, I know that's not everybody's favorite place, but I was very surprised to see that they have they didn't have this before, a huge room where they rent things, so you can rent equipment. Then on the wall, they had all this repair that you could do. It was hidden behind the cash register, but they had a list of about 30 types of equipment that they would repair. And then also they had a reuse section. So I do think it is one of the things that would be cool to brainstorm on is how can we get this to be the norm so that people will repair rather than toss or buy new. And I know that's a little bit more bigger picture than you were going with sort of some of the logistics stuff.
No, I think that's great. I'm going to riff off of what Stephen just said here. So he said, we've got fixers that want to fix stuff, and then we have fixers that want to engage, right? And like, of course, you're not going to notice at the offset, and that's totally fine. But eventually, who's who. Which ones are really good at teaching and, handing the project over versus the ones who are like, just let me do this for you. And I just want to take 20 seconds to say, let's please remember neurodivergent people. I'm terribly shy, as you all have figured out by now. But there are a lot of shy people. There are a lot of people who will not engage with something if it's like, oh, you're on your own, you kind of have to dive in. So I just want to remind people of that. And then also you may have fixers that also are not terribly comfortable. I've had a lot of fixers kind of express that type of thing to me. And so I try to be really cognizant of that and just kind of I'm trying to think of a diplomatic way of putting this, but basically like you want to be that person that can kind of liaise between, you know, us neurotypicals or us very outgoing, very extroverted people, and then people who are different than that.
That'd be a fantastic workshop to do next one of these.
I am in a very long time relationship with a neurodivergent person. So it's near and dear to my heart. And I try my best to remind myself that our society very much awards and rewards people who are extroverts. So that's my 2 cents worth about that.
Hey, Tara, Bruce had his hand up and then Heather.
Okay, just a real quick one to put away. Sometimes people will talk about they have a problem with a car or a home or whatever and say, yeah, sure, put it in the back seat of your car and bring it over to our fixer event. Obviously, it doesn't work very well. What I've proven on several occasions is that if you gather up a group of fixers, and then what I would propose is do an afternoon. I mean, I did it for myself to prove it. And have people actually go out on site, maybe fix a gate, maybe get a door latch working or something like that, and say, all I ask is a donation going to a certain nonprofit. It works. I've got probably $500 this year that is on 2 occasions that have gone out. So give us some thought.
Heather, go for it.
Oh, sorry. I'm distracted by this box. I kind of straddle that line between neurotypical and neurodivergent, I feel sometimes. So I'm a little bit of an interpreter at our events. And I have been these events, for me, starting them, actually for me, it wasn't about fixing things necessarily. It was about, I don't know, just trying to do something cool in the community that was about resilience and self-sufficiency and, you know, growing up, not learning any skills that I could, you know, speak of in terms of, you know, fixing things. I really was just really drawn to it once I became an adult. And so I kind of wanted to figure out how to share that with people who also didn't grow up in a home where they really were learning skills and stuff. So that was me. My volunteers have made it very clear they like the fixing things. That's where they get their dopamine hits. So I do that interpretation of almost more at the beginning, like the diagnostics, I think, is where a lot of people are like deer in headlights. It's like, it's broken. I don't know what to do next to figure it out. So I feel like that's where, at least, you know, beginner level trying to fix things, that's where that I can at least walk through the questions. What did you try? How did you do this? Did you look through the vacuum hose to see if anything's blocking it before bringing it in? You know, like these types of questions. So that's, I think those questions, or those diagnosis type questions, are, I think, where we're starting.